say that I'm live streaming right now. We are going to fix that because I need the damn link. Alright, where are we at? We're on YouTube and Rumble. Maybe. Not seeing it pop up. So, if anybody's out there, let me know. Because it does not show that it's streaming at the moment. Son of a biscuit. Account is not verified for streaming. Oh, stop it. Let's verify this real quick. Maybe it's just taking a little bit for this to up. Okay, there it goes. There it goes. Just so I can get it. We're gonna just oop right there. And I guess it's 6 o'clock, so let's get started. Yay. I can't be staring at myself because that's just weird. I don't know if there's a way. Let me start this video because I have multiple cameras here. Hopefully we'll get this situated to where I don't have to use the ugly, very overexposed camera on my laptop for much longer because that's just a pain in the butt. Alright, so last week we talked about the exemptions, and that was just a total honorary wreck, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, now we're in chapter 4 this week, and hopefully you were able to get a copy of your book from Polyface Farm Store. Hang on. You can actually let me look that up real quick, and I'll make sure that you guys have a link available. Yeah, I think it's Polyface Farm Store or Polyface Shop. Hang on. My eyeballs are melting. Okay, so if you want to get a copy of this book that we're reading at the moment, it's called Everything I Want to Do is Legal by Joel Salatin. And this is basically talking about all of the run-ins with regulations that he's had issues with over, the decades, and how he subverted or navigated those issues by being creative with his thought or making a big stink about it because you're not going to get anything done unless you're like the squeaky wheel, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, obviously. Well, this week, I want to say this is after, but honestly, this has actually been happening at the same time. And unfortunately, the accumulation of what we talked about last week and what we're about to talk about this week almost broke him, because at the very end of this chapter, he is just standing out in the field and meditating and praying to God and saying, dude, why did you give me all of this, my customers, these environmental practices? Why give this all to me if all you're going to do is take it away? What was the point? And building up to that, we're going to find out exactly what happened, because this is a person who is, damn it, what is happening? Hang on, my gimbal is jacked up right now. This is a person, hang on just a minute, this is not right. What is going on? No, hang on just a sec, guys. What's going on with this thing? Stop. Alright. I don't know why all of a sudden this thing has to have a mind of its own, but it's not working. that. As for this. I don't know why this isn't working. God damn it. Alright. I don't think there's anybody watching this. I will be right back. Be right back. Can't even with this. Just kidding. So if any of you know how to work this stupid thing, DJI, I don't know why there's a flashing light. It's really annoying. I'm just gonna repower because I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, it doesn't have a light flashing now. I hate this freaking gimbal. Can I not just use like a clamp? Because I'm over it. Why do I have to turn something on to freaking make it work? Like, this is so annoying. There, I have moved it. Maybe I have to, maybe if I make my phone naked, maybe it'll work. So that's what we're gonna do. And look, I have to like take all this stuff apart just to get it to go. Just in case you're wondering, I do have a nice bag of moringa seeds over here. This I found at the Moringa Collective, which I am an affiliate of. I don't know how to use that link, but on the Moringa Collective, there's like a whole bunch of different people growing it all across the world, and that person who grew that just happened to be local to me. So I was able to get local seeds and grow them. I have some trees out in the yard that I'm growing. I finally got it to work. It was so annoying. Phone camera direction. It's going the right direction. So what's the deal? I don't know what the deal is with this thing, but it's really annoying. I hate this gimbal. I'm gonna fire it. I wanna. Alright, well, it's being a pain in my butt, so we're gonna just do this the old-fashioned way, ghetto style. And this camera is gonna go up on, like, I don't know, piece of clothing or block or something. But I do need to get my notes up. Scroll to the top. And then we're also going to get the book over there that we were just talking about. And then we will be rolling. No pun intended. Rolling. Get it? So funny. Alright, I'm going to just stick this right here. Because that's the best I can. Oh, God, that looks terrible. I could do better. I could do so much better. I had the angle. Great. It was perfect. Everything was working. And then it all just went to crap. Kaputs. Sorry. So I'm a little bit of a cluster F over here because this is my craft room and it is not set up for tech at all whatsoever. And look at that. We're just going to be looking through the glass, staring at the background because it's the best I got. All right. Well, hopefully this angle doesn't suck. I don't think anybody cares, to be honest. I'm actually going to go ahead and send out a invitation to my homies on the Discord because they're Gucci McCoochie. Okay. Go. It's so weird to see yourself on the internet. Okay, hang on just a second. Just copy the link. And then I wish there was an easier way to do this, but honestly, I'm really new to it, so I don't really know how to do it any other way. I know some of my home skillets might jump on if I send it out. What the Sam damn is going on? And there's the channel. Oh, we'll see what we're doing. Don't know. See what happens. Alright. Here we go with the video. What is that? Huh. Okay. This is what we're working with here. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and whatever. I guess we'll just have to do the best we can. Alright. So basically what we're saying was Joel Salatin is very good at putting his mind out there and saying what he's thinking, which is great because that makes for like an honest person rather than somebody who's just out to follow directions. Excuse the adjustments. But in this particular episode, Joel Salatin was kind of, I guess, he had a run-in with the police again. Not the police, but you know how last time it was the chicken police, and now it's the beef police. So he ran into the beef police this time, and unfortunately for him, it was more of a pain in the butt to get in his way than like anything. Let me just go ahead and scroll over to the chapter, and we will get on with it. Okay. I know I read like the beginning of this last week, but we're gonna go ahead and reread that because it might have been a little bit of a cliffhanger. All right, here we go. I'm Bill from the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Meat and Poultry Inspection. We've impounded your beef hanging at the slaughterhouse because an informant told us you're selling uninspected meat. We'll have to conduct an investigation. And that's what starts this chapter, you guys, is Joel's running with the beef inspector. Now, he goes on to have quite an interaction with this guy. And the unfortunate thing is that while his beef has been impounded, it's really kind of up in the air in terms of when he's going to get it back. And so he gets into a little back and forth with this guy, which, yeah, he's got his, to lay a little bit of a backstory, Joel has a farm where they raise beef. They have customers who pay for the cow or a quarter or a half, and then they send it to a custom slaughterhouse They send it to a local abattoir, where you get your butchering services, slaughter services done, and then they do a custom slaughter on it, which is where they will cut it the way that the consumer or the customer wants it, and then they will send it on its way, but they have to stick a label on it that says not meant for resale, something to that extent. not meant for resale. I don't see it on there, but yeah, it's basically you can't sell it. So if you do sell it, then well, you're conducting business illegally. You're not allowed to do that. So that's where we stand today. So he gets into a little back and forth with the inspector guy because he's like, dude, we've been doing this for years. Like, what are you talking about? And the problem is that his meat had already been hanging for a week, and they usually let it hang for about a week to 10 days or whatever. And so, when he's like going to get his beef, so take back to his farm for his customers, he's like, dude, what are you talking about? You can't just like take my stuff. This is my livelihood. Like, they depend on these, like, what was it, like 12 cows or something? I don't know, cattle. They had, I think, 12 beef cattle on the racks to go and resell for their family income for the year, which accounted for about a third of their income. And so that's a huge chunk of money to, just let sit and rot, in a freezer or whatever. And the very insensitive inspector was like, oh, well, if it takes 6 months, then I guess we can just send it to rendering for dog food. They say that you can't have it because then it's going to be, ill by then. And Joel's like, yeah, because the meat's going to be rotten by then. You can't just like indefinitely store it. And that's a problem. Like, what am I going to do? Even if you are to take the meat and deem it that I was in the right, like, what am I supposed to do when you've already made me wait, like, all this time? How can I make this go faster? And the guy's just like, I'm just doing my job. It's too bad. Sorry. No feelings at all. Which is like one of the things that irks Joel the most is that, like, if you're a person, a human being, and you have a soul and you have feelings and maybe a little bit of conscience, then maybe you might use some of that stored energy to be a little empathetic and maybe just not be a power trip. But, people from the city, no offense if you're from the city. I've lived in the city for, most of my life at least. But people in the city, they don't know what it's like generally out in the rural communities. So when they're making laws and regulations and passing all these bills and whatnot, how much of that is actually benefiting somebody who is raising food or has a farm or has a homestead or whatever? How much of the city-born regulations where, huge food conglomerates also do business is benefiting the person who lives in rural America? You tell me. But regardless, Joel ends up calling his senator. So he snakes his way up the food chain, making a big stink about it, as he should. As he should. Because as an American, we have this, like, pre-given spirit in us, I guess you could say, about kind of standing up against tyranny. And it's just kind of ingrained in us. I don't really, So, rightfully, that's what he did. And he starts calling all these people and basically, trying to get to the, I would say get to the bottom of it, but he's really trying to get to the top of it. so that he can, be like, dude, I need it. He's just trying to get his beef back to his customers who are waiting on their food for the year. They've already got, as he says, freezers to store the stuff. Because have you ever seen what a full cow looks like? Like slaughtered, like the carcass meat. It's a lot of meat. That's like, how much do these animals weigh again? Because, like, I can't even remember. I can Google that real quick. How much does a full-grown meat, or we'll just say beef cow, because that's the actual term. Beef cow weigh. Somebody's already Googled it because, there's normal people in the world. This is 1,000 to 1,800 800 pounds, which, Joel's actually going to go into this little tick of a question here in a little bit, because what becomes of this whole situation is what seems to be an 800-pound difference. Now, that is the live weight of a cow. Let's see what the carcass weight, which they call that, oh God, what do they call it? How much does a beef carcass weigh? Okay, so whenever you have cut the cow, you've gutted it, you've skinned it, taken it, and all that stuff, all the organs are out. A beef carcass will typically weigh between 600 and 900 pounds. Okay, so that's not as bad of a difference, but still a 300-pound difference. So keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to that. We're going to circle back to that 300 pounds. All right, let me find my little shishkimadag again. All right, so he's gone up the food chain, making a big stink about this dude, because Homeskillet is really like on a mission to prove this guy wrong, because in his eyes, he's not done anything wrong, which seems to be kind of a repeating pattern. So next we're going to go into what kinds of slaughters there are and how you process it, because there are 3 different main types of processing your meat. So going back to custom, because that's what we're talking about, is a custom slaughter. Like we said, your customer will bring the animal that they have owned to the butcher. They will have it slaughtered, and then the customer will take it home, and it has to be stamped with the not for sale, not for sale, not for resale, not for sale, none of that stuff. You can't have no selling action going on, no dollars. All right, very important part of that. And he says, since our customers did not actually raise the animal, everyone in the system agreed that as long as the animal entered the kill chute with a name on it, the custom designation was okay. And since the law did not specify how long an animal had to be owned to qualify, the time period was 0, which basically means that you're good. You're good. If you're sending the animal in there and you have like a, let's say, a half owner or a quarter owner, both names got to be on the tag. And this is the way that they did. I don't know if this is the way they do it all across the U.S. with custom slaughter, but at least in this particular situation, at this particular abattoir that he uses, that is what they do. If the customer buys a quarter of an animal, the farmer pairs that customer with others so that the ear tag goes into the same kill chute, or the same ear tag goes into the kill chute. The paperwork clearly denotes that it is owned by 4 people, each getting a quarter, and those people then tell their butcher how they want their portion cut and packaged, which is the custom process. And then the package is stamped not for sale. And then the customer will go and pick up the packages. So it's pretty much like a cow share, like they do like the milk herd cow shares, dairy milk share, whatever you call it. Somebody just take me out. But this is the same kind of thing. It's like you have a cow share that is not for dairy. This cow share is for meat. So the whole thing with this was that it's basically the responsibility of the customer, consumer, whatever, because they're both the same person, the customer, the consumer, the caretaker. It's their responsibility to make sure that their animal is safe to eat, they're not diseased, etc. And for all purposes, like that's, a pretty sane, that's a sane thought process, right? We don't want to be eating sick animals, but I mean, do we eat sick animals? You tell me. I don't know. Are you able to actually go and inspect the farm that cattle are raised on that you eat? Well, I think if you did want to do that, then maybe you should go food local, because these places are like very like untraceable. If you get something like a pack of beef from like Walmart, good luck. Good luck finding and tracing where that came from. Much less being able to show up on farm and be like, hey, can I come see your ranch? Farm, ranch, whatever. But yeah, basically, if you get sick from your own animal, then that's your own dang fault. And that's kind of where it's going here. And the owner can't sell the packages to anyone. She can give them away. You can gift this meat. You just can't sell it. Circle back to that too. All right, the next one is the state inspection, which is pretty much the same thing as the federal inspection, which is the other one. Okay, so there's also a federal inspection, state inspection, and custom, and then custom slaughter. These are the three different ways that you can have your meat, your beef, whatever, cut and sold, or, well, I guess in the case of custom, you can't sell it. But basically, you can have it butchered, slaughtered, whatever. It can be only one of those three things: custom, state, or federally inspected. So the custom is not inspected at all. There is no like state or federal official there to watch the process. But under state and federal inspections, there is an inspector there, and they will watch and sniff the meat to make sure it's not nasty, I guess. But you can sell this stuff. You don't mark it not for sale, because the whole process of the state and federally inspected meat is to sell it. Sorry, how to like get comfortable. The difference with the state inspection is that it can't cross state lines. So you can publicly sell it, like to a restaurant or to home scale it down the road, like whatever, but it just can't cross the road. So if home scale it neighbor literally sits on the state line, I hate this rule. I hate stupid rules. But like literally, if your neighbor sits on the same street as you and they're like just on the state line, you can't sell your neighbor, but you can sell that neighbor. So I mean, I don't know. Is it? But here's my thought process. If homie over there in Louisiana, all the way over there 20 feet away in Louisiana, wants his beef from you because he knows that you're going to sell better beef than the grocery store, it's going to be fresher, it's not going to be like contaminated with food dyes or butt flies or whatever. I wonder if he could just come over to your place and pick it up. I don't know, because that's what, I don't know. Something to think about. I guess I think it's actually just where it's sold. As long as home scale it makes the purchase before he crosses state lines, I think then you're good. That would make sense. That would make all the sense, because what do I care if you take it, 4 states away after you bought it legally at my place, as long as I'm not driving it. I think that's where the law lies. Is as long as you are not driving it, you're good. Okay, so that's like the inspection statuses. Federally, you can transit anywhere as long as like you're following like the import-export rules. Like with the federally inspected stamp, you can literally go anywhere you want with it. Ugh. Dude. let me just read this real quick. I didn't even put in my notes to read this, but we're going to read it anyway because I think it's fun. When the bureaucrats pink slipped and impounded our beef at the custom butcher, they thought they were getting it processed. They thought that we were getting it processed, bringing the not for sale packages home and then selling them by the piece to our customers. And that's totally illegal. Once they went back over and looked closer, they realized that each of our animals had a name or names on it. All right. So, with this part of the story, they basically did like this double back thing, right? So they impound the beef, and then Joel makes a big stink about it, and then they have to go and check the records, and they realize that, oh schnickles, there is actually, he's not reselling. These are actually have like different people's names on it. So like Joel was following the law, and so they had to like kind of double back and be like, oh well, and then they came up with a stupid rule, right? So they ended up coming up with a new interpretation, and they said, well, if you have already made the deal with the customer, like even though you've already made an agreement with the customer, you have to they have to pay for it in full before it goes to the slaughterhouse. It has to go before the slaughterhouse. And Joel's like brain just kind of explodes, right? He's like, why? Because why? He's quite annoyed, and I'm annoyed for him because the thing is like, who cares? Who cares when the money was given? If it was given before or after? And the argument here is that if he's selling his cows based on weight, we're getting back to this other point when we're talking about like the 900 versus a 600 pound cow and those being live weights. Well, if you have a cow that has fattened up quite a bit more than another cow, which is more lean, you're going to be getting an animal that is either more muscular, has a lot more meat, versus a cow that has more fat. And then on top of that, you have to also take into consideration what's in their gut. Like, what do their guts look like? Because those can have different weights as well. They could also be retaining water. And then that's how you get like lots of variations, not just on the condition of the animal, but also on like, and I've seen this with my rabbits too. Like this, I have rabbits that I raise for meat. And especially in the winter time, I can have two rabbits. They virtually look the same, but whether one has a thicker coat of fur or a thicker layer of fat, or one just had a big stomach, maybe one was pregnant, because that happens. Whichever the case is, your animal can have many different reasons for being for weighing more and less, because meat and fat and water and food and unborn calves, I guess, if that ever happens, because I think beef are technically the male cows, but I don't know. The point is like the weights can vary, not just based on condition, but also based on condition being like, are they fattier or meatier? Their bones can also be bigger, depending on genetics. Like you could have an animal that has inherited a larger bone density. And that's a huge thing with meat rabbits, especially, is that you don't want to get a line of meat rabbits that have a really terrible meat to bone ratio. So when you're looking for meat rabbits for your homestead, or if you just wanted to raise them for meat to sell or whatever it is, like you want to get an animal line that has high meat to low bone ratio, because then you get more meat for like the pounds that you put on the animal. So like there's a lot of variations and a lot of things that go into this, but let's circle back to this where we were. 600 pounds. Where was it? Hang on. Second. Okay. I said a beef carcass. I'm actually going to screenshot this for later because I'm going to want to see this in action. All right. We're going to pop that over here. Maybe not. Hang on. Let me do it again. Screenshot. I have like that selective screenshot where you have to like, it doesn't just take a screenshot and you copy and paste kind of thing. You have to actually like move it and select what you want it to screenshot. It's kind of annoying. Okay, I got the screenshot in there. We'll come back to that later. All right, so now it's in my notes and I can read it to you. Yay. So the 600 to 900 pound difference is going to really hit home with Joel Salatin. And in his book, I think he said his example was like you could have a 500 pound carcass or a 600 pound carcass. Now I did use AI to look this up, so mine could be wrong. But regardless, if you're selling meat $10 a pound, that's $1,000 just for a 100 pound difference. $500 and $600. Or 500 and 600 pounds. And in his case, they were selling the meat based on what the animal weighed after slaughter, the carcass. This is the carcass. That means it's not the head, I think in most cases, at least, because some people keep the tongue and the brains and whatever. No offals, which is like the intestines and everything that you don't use. Probably the hide, probably the hooves. Some people keep those because they use them as dog treats. Like it really just depends on the person. In America, I don't think a lot of people use the tail, but in Latino cultures, I believe they call it the oxtail, and they do make a dish out of that. They also make a dish out of the tongue, which is called lengua. It's very good in tacos. But there are various parts of the animal that you may or may not use. So when you're at a state or a federally inspected facility, and you are using that facility so that you can so that you can have a lot of beef processed because you're taking that beef to market and selling it there, then you're going to want to use every single piece of that animal that you possibly can to get every single penny out of it. So they use like as much as they can, I'm sure. And that's, I believe, where glue comes from, is hooves. But don't quote me on that because I don't remember if that's fake or not. But the I lost my thought process. Yeah, so some people don't take the organs home either. They don't want the organs. They don't want to have anything to do with them. It's actually really good to eat, beef liver. I got real wild one year and I ordered a cow heart and I ate it on my birthday because I thought about trying something new, and there we have it. And that was the first time I kind of like dipped into like animal organs. And then I found Paul Saladino, and then I was like, dude. And now I have like a whole bunch of organs that I take. And I wish I could just, affiliate with them because that stuff is amazing. But whatever. The liver's good. The kidneys, I don't know if they have kidneys or not. They probably do. I don't have cows. I don't raise cows, so I'm very limited on my knowledge about cows. I do have this other book by Joel Salatin called Salad Bar Beef. It's how to raise your animals on pasture, cows, cattle. And it's basically about the regenerative agriculture type side of it, and giving your animals good food instead of pharmaceuticals. So there's that. I mean, we can get into that one another time. But I have like a ton of books that I want to get into before that. But the point is that these organs and ovals and heads, whatnot, they can add up to a huge difference, because I think the cow heart is like 10 pounds by itself. So if you're charging your customers based on the pounds after slaughter, because let's say Joe wants the heart and the liver, and Bob doesn't want none of that. He don't want to have nothing to do with it. Okay? He's normal. He just wants ribs and brisket and all the normal American stuff. So Joe is going to be getting more, and Bob is going to be getting less. It would be fair if Joe paid more for his animal because he's getting more. And if Bob paid the same amount as Joe, that's kind of not fair anymore, right? Okay. So, and this is where the custom slaughter gets into like the sticky weeds. So Joel was really upset about this. And so since, it's sold, the whole pay for it after slaughter. Hang on. Let me just take this off. Joel was upset about this new interpretation because if he had to make sure that his customers paid before slaughter, then that means that everybody's going to have to be paying like the same price. And so if everybody's paying the same price, Bob is getting screwed while Joe is getting a deal. Okay, so the thing that Home Skillet, who was this guy? He got the General Assembly guy, the state delegate to the general. Hang on, let me look. The state delegate General Assembly. I don't know what this dude is. Okay, hang on. Let me just read it from the book so that we can get a clear picture of what's going on, because he basically calls like a meeting at his house, and it's just got all these people there. And so, yeah. All right. So finally, our state delegate, who happened to be a minority leader in the General Assembly at the time, asked if a waiver would be in order. He asked if our customers would be willing to sign a waiver absolving the government of liability and recognizing that they took full responsibility of what they were buying. Which I'm all for waivers, but when Joel took this to like the Attorney General, I believe it was, the guy literally said like that's not going to hold up in court. So like even if something happened and you guys all agreed on it, everybody's being a freaking adult, it's not going to hold up in court. You could get still thrown in jail or sued or whatever. So yeah, Joel was like not happy about this. So he calls this meeting for everybody, or maybe they've already called this meeting. Yeah, he did. He called a meeting over to his house, and he invited the top state inspector, and then the government, the state inspector, and then the state oversight federal officer. God, there's so much in this. And invited them all to his house to talk about this, because, like, why not? If you know him, might as well invite him over for tea, right? Let's talk about the tea. So they get there, and then he makes them wait in the yard. He makes them wait for like an hour because his people weren't there yet, which was like, it was like some volunteers or something, and apprentice He said it was like a homeschool program. So he made him wait. Which I thought was funny. And they start going over all this, and he's like, okay, so why is this, why? Just why? That's all. They get to battling it over, and like one of the lawyers, is a lawyer and attorney like the same thing? Because like I don't know. But the attorney dude and then like someone else, they started opening discussions about it, and then it just got a little stupid in my opinion, because like I just okay. The officials said it was unfair for us to slip through a loophole that allowed, or hang on, let me read you that. Okay, the officials are saying to Joel that it is unfair for them to slip through a loophole that allowed a $30,000 facility to process beef when Kroger and Walmart had to use $1 million facilities. I'm just gonna marinate on that for a minute because that's annoying. And you know, Joel being the just him says, well, you're not in the same game. You're just not in the same game. Obviously, a farmer in Virginia is not Walmart. So here's where it just gets so freaking annoying. Oh my god. This is what boils my blood. Okay. The folk here, this is Joel talking again. He says, the folks that you're talking about that are putting these squeezes on you don't sell beef this way because, okay, let me backtrack a little because I think I might have skipped over it. No. Okay. I did not. Joel's talking. Their customers can come in at 5 p.m. and buy you a steak and buy a steak on a whim. They don't have a clue where the meat came from, who grew it, or what the cow ate. They have no relationship whatsoever with this meat. And to be sure, we have no problem, absolutely, with them playing in that game. But for these retailers to even think that we are in the same game is ludicrous. You're right. It's ludicrous. And the officials responded that their retail constituency, I'm going to read that again for you. Their retail constituency did not see it that way. That meat was meat, and they believed we had an unfair advantage in the marketplace if we were going to continue to use low-cost neighborhood abattoirs. All right, we're going to park it there for a minute because I got something to say about that. Retail constituency complaints about the unfair advantage of a little guy who's a blip on the radar compared to like these huge like food conglomerates with billions of dollars. Their $1 million facility is just, I mean, if you were to compare the money that they make, billions of dollars, maybe trillions, billions of dollars. Think of all the people on the planet. It was like 8.5 billion people. And every one of those people has to eat. And these guys have basically a monopoly on the whole fucking system. And they're complaining because you want to sell beef. Like 12 cows to 12, maybe 20 families. And you're being unfair. That's so annoying. The nerve of these people. Ugh. If I recall so correctly, I believe in the Declaration of Independence, it said, "We the people, not we the shareholders." And the government is not technically legally supposed to favor corporations over the small farmers, just so you know. Yeah. The government's supposed to be serving us. In our founding principles, we are the people, the actual people, are supposed to be the ones that the government's serving. Unfortunately, not huge conglomerate corporations that have a global imprint on the world, and they're owned by shareholders, which are other companies. Shareholders are they're just other companies. Have you ever like gone down like the rabbit hole of like who owns what? You got like BlackRock and this and that, and you're like, oh, who owns this? Who owns BlackRock? Well, other companies. And who owns those companies? Other companies. Who owns those companies? Other companies. And they're all just like in this big backpack of people. They're not people, but governments make loopholes for them to consider themselves as people, but they're not. They're basically just all running each other's big show. One big fat show. I need to shut up before I get nixed. But it's just they're all protecting each other's interests internationally. And so if we are supposed to have a government that's in favor of us, the citizens, then why, if anybody can buy into those corporations and then invest as a shareholder into another corporation that invests into another one, why are they allowed to have their rights over ours? I just don't understand it. But regulatory agencies like the FDA, USDA, and EPA, all that, they're all kind of like bought and paid for, and we all know this. And it's not about, food safety or public health or whatever. It's about like basically squishing down the competition so that, the little guy can't get up and rise above and become someone. I don't know. Is that just like my biased belief? Maybe. But am I just observing some stuff that's actually happening? Yeah. Well, that's it though. I mean, investor-owned food giants is basically what we got. So, like, if you wanted to... Okay, so does anybody remember that shit in Facebook that, like, Zuckerberg went through, like, the antitrust laws and stuff? Let me just read you something real quick. Antitrust laws, like the Sherman and Clayton Acts, were written to prevent monopolies and protect small businesses from being crushed by powerful entities. An administrative law is supposed to reflect the public interest, not corporate bottom lines. But if the antitrust laws are written to protect, us, the real people, and corporate interest is supposed to be down here, like compared to public interest. It's like, why is this happening? There's my thumbnail. Thank you. It just doesn't sit well with me that, like, we've gotten out of control with this a little bit. It's gotten a little bit out of hand. But, what are we gonna do? Unless you stand up and make a big stink about it, not much is gonna happen. The government often will favor large corporations over, you and me, little guy, whatever. And that's why you don't feel like you have a voice, because despite the legal framework, things are still happening. And this is what's really going on. You got the regulatory capture, which is where corporations literally help write the rules. and this is where like lobbying comes into play and stuff like that. And if you remember when RFK was running as president, I think, this may or not, this is likely said before he ended his campaign, but he talked about the revolving door. And if you were never really sure about what that meant, it was basically where can I say names here? I don't want to drop names. I'm gonna screw the names up. Just, I know you guys are gonna know what I'm talking about, but I'm gonna screw the names up just so you know. It's where San Manto executives, that sounds so dumb, became a DFA advisor, and then after writing little regulations, went back to work in the corporate sector. Back to San Manto. Did I say San Manto? Y'all know who I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying. But actually, that company doesn't exist anymore. So technically, I could say Yayer. Yeah, Yayer, who is getting sued to high. She has knuckles right now because of glyphosate. And if they don't fold, they've already tried to put regulations in Mississippi, was it? I don't even remember what state it was. Basically, trying to ban people from suing them if their poisons made them sick. Well, to be completely blunt, it wasn't their poisons. They just bought the poisons. We can do a whole storytelling on that. I like storytelling. Anyway, we're going to be moving on to the big ag subsidies. Do y'all even know what that is? Big ag subsidies. Okay. So the subsidies were actually put in place to help. Oh, God. There's a long story behind this. So we're just going to have to shorten it because it's going to be a long. Anyways, the government has subsidies for farmers. And they've gotten a little extensive. And then they've gotten overregulated. And then nobody who actually needs them can use them because to qualify for them, you have to be a big guy. And so basically, the only people who use government welfare, not the only people, but most people are able to qualify for lots of millions of dollars or billions, I guess, because of, all the grants as well, and bailouts. It's just basically big ag. Big food, big ag, and big buttholes. Get brown nosy up in the, political sector. God, it's just a nasty hole. And it doesn't matter if they're like polluting the planet like San Manto did, or abusing animals, like crowding chickens to huge buildings with no beaks and no feathers, and controlling the prices because they have huge shares of the market and they can manipulate it how they want. So don't think that when millions of cattle in New Mexico are being ordered to get euthanized, that isn't like some plot, because it might be. I mean, who knows? I didn't dig into that too far, but if you want to go watch that guy over on Lonesome Lands or Yanasa TV, they could probably tell you more about it than I could, because, again, I'm not a cow person, not a cattle person, not a dairy person, not a beef farmer. I don't know nothing about this. I'm just reading a book and giving you research to do if you want to do some homework, which you should if you want to elevate your mind, break through the fifth dimension, be enlightened, forget involve hunger, all that shit. Anyway, moving on. There's also the regulatory barriers where we have been talking about, like the exemptions, the inspections, the freaking the overbearing, like complex designations of regulations for all these people to have to jump through if they're like the a small producer, and he can't afford to because, Billy just wants to grow grapes, and then he's got to, grow these dang grapes first. Not kill them, and then maybe he'll get a crop that he can use. But he can't even get his foot in the door because there's a freaking regulation saying that he has to wash every grape with some stupid whatever chemical and then spray it with a peel. And he doesn't want to do that. He just wants to grow fresh grapes biodynamically and make wine. Who knows? Gosh, so we're kind of a little bit off the rails here. That's okay. But these regulations, they force farmers out of the game before they even get started. A lot of the times, they can't get ahead. And sometimes they've been doing this for years, like generations. It's like their family business, and they get they get forced out because there's so many dumb things that happen. You got water rights issues up in Colorado right now. They're trying to take people's land. There's so much dumb stuff going on in this world. It's just ridiculous. Like, so much for the land of the free. Like, if we were supposed to be the land of the free, then where the hell did all our rights go? Jeez, so stupid. And then the last thing that I wanted to get into was the corporate personhood, which was something that I kind of mentioned earlier when we were talking about the shareholders and whatnot. Personhood. Let me just read you this. So annoying. Okay, so what is corporate personhood? So since the Citizens United in 2010, corporations are considered people under the First Amendment for the purpose of political spending. So yes, your food system is influenced by a person with no soul, no family, no conscience, but with a super PAC. And if you don't know what a PAC is, PAC, it's short for the Political Action Committee, and it's a type of political organization in the United States. Can do a whole bunch of shiesty, in my opinion. It's kind of like lobbying. Shouldn't be illegal, but it is. Basically, they raise and they spend money, huge unlimited amounts of money, and they support or oppose candidates in political office and with issues and regulations, legislation, and they receive donations from individuals, and there's no cap on it. Super PAC. It's like a STEM PAC. Did anybody play Fallout? STEM PAC. Wait, hang on. That's so dumb. I need a picture of that. Somebody save the clip for me. But let me read another piece to you real quick. A super PAC is like a giant political megaphone for rich donors and corporations. They can spend millions to influence elections through TV ads, social media, rallies, and more. And as long as they pretend they're doing it independently, they can do it. But all this, and billions of dollars, and small farmer and the small abattoirs are getting slapped with the unfair advantage. So tell me that doesn't bother you at all. That just gets under my skin. I'm so annoyed. I don't look like I'm annoyed, but I've had time to simmer on this for a few hours, and I'm like, it's freaking annoying. The stuff that people get away with, corporations get away with. And like how this is all kind of like ran into like our rights as people. I mean, like, come on. Since when does a non-existent thing have more rights than a human? And not to say that it has more rights. A corporation doesn't have more rights. No, apparently they do have rights because they're people. But they have more influence. They have more power. They have more money. They have more pull and regulations and stuff like that. So, like, it's just not fair. But going back to this meeting that Joel was having in his living room with all these guys and all these gals, he said, because everybody was just kind of like, they argued for a little bit. Nobody could really come to an agreement as to what happens next, because, you know, if he was going to have to stop charging people based on the weight of the carcass after slaughter, because remember, these animals all weigh a different amount. And if that was the case, he was just kind of like in this situation, like, I don't know what to do. So he asked, if you were me, what would you do? And they shut up. And they all got quiet, and nobody talked. And so they sat there for a few minutes and looked around at each other, and it was uncomfortable because nobody had an answer. And one guy spoke up, and it was a federal guy. And what he said blew everyone's mind, even Joel's, because Joel hadn't even thought of this himself. He said, why don't you charge per head, and then charge the extra for shipping and handling by weight? And everyone won. Everyone agreed. The feds agreed. The states agreed. The attorney agreed. The aides agreed. Joel agreed. His customers loved it. Everybody was on the same page, finally. And this never would have happened if it wasn't for that little who showed up at his door saying that his beef had been impounded. This could have all been avoided had said guy not have even gotten involved in the first place. But the point is that it shows the example of being faced with a bureaucratic, ridiculous regulation, somebody's interpretation, once again, ridiculous interpretations, and then him overcoming it. And then at the same time, his taxes went down because in Virginia, they don't charge for services. They only charge for products. So he didn't have, because this is what happened, because I didn't even go over this. So what had happened was, when they all agreed on this, he was like, cool, whatever. Everybody leaves, shake hands, go on about their day, and go buy their cow from the grocery store, obviously, because they're in the city. And then Joel goes to his customers, and he's like, hey, how about this? If you buy a whole cow, it's $1. And then if you buy half a cow, it's 50 cents. And if you buy a quarter of a cow, it's a quarter. Hey, imagine paying for your beef with like a little $50, like one of those old ones, those fat coins. I have one somewhere. Actually, I think I don't anymore. I had a whole bunch of them. But I think what happened was I was broke one time, and then I ended up taking all those $50 and like buying gas or something. Maybe a candy bar. I don't know. But anyways, $50. You just go and buy your cow with a $50. Why not? 2 of them if you want the whole cow. So he goes and he says, yeah, this is the price. $1 a cow. $12 for all these 12 cows. I'm gonna have to make it somehow. But the shipping and handling is where I got them. It was $2 a pound. for shipping and handling. $2 a pound for shipping and handling. So you still would have to weigh the animal after. And whether he shipped the animal or not, you still have to weigh it because he's handling it. Shipping and handling. So everybody wins. Flat rate and per pound. Nobody would have thought of this. So the lesson here is, if you want to do something one way and the government says you have to do it another way and nobody can agree, just do both. Make sense? I mean, that's what I learned from this. Oh man, I think you have to get them to agree first though, so that's the downer. Getting anybody to agree from Washington is, well, I mean, Austin in my case, may or may not be a good thing, because I don't know if my values line up with the big city, which is my whole argument, but whatever. They buy their beef at the supermarket. So do I. I guess I could go to my neighbor. She never has enough money. Everybody around here is always like backed up a couple years. So, actually, I'm gonna plug something in. So, actually, we can wait on that. I'm gonna tell you where to get some good beef, because I do get my beef at the supermarket, but I also have, like, there's a specific kind that I get, right? There's the online supermarket. You can actually buy custom slaughters online. Did you know that? So if you haven't ever heard of regenerative beef, that's the kind that Joel raises. So that was this book, right? It talks about that. Now, hold on just a second. Oh, if you've ever heard of Home Skillet Gabe Brown, this is how you learn about regenerative agriculture. This dude went through some shit. 4 years on subsidies trying to make it work. Not subsidies. He was trying to make it work. He couldn't pay his loans back for 4 years in a row because they were freaking hailed out, rained out, droughted out, and he had to basically figure out how to do regenerative agriculture all on his own because there was no rule book for it and there were no directions. And so he figured it out, and then you have this huge revolution of regenerative agriculture nerds like me who love it. And I run my rabbits regeneratively and my chickens in tractors. They're tractored, which is kind of like the same way that they do it, except for instead of a giant field, because we don't want the birds to come and take them out, we put them in tractors and we bounce them around. But that's like some of the best beef you're ever going to taste is regenerative beef. And I usually will buy, when I don't order it online, I will usually go to the grocery store and get a grocery. We have one called Natural Grocers here in Texas, and they sell regenerative beef, and it is so good. I can't remember the name of it either. But I'm going to drop a link. I'm going to drop a link below for rep provisions, and that's where you can get like a quarter cow or half a cow or whatever if you wanted to order that. Huge boxes, but they also sell like these like beef boxes of mixed cuts, so you can get like a whole bunch of ground beef and a whole bunch of steaks and like all this stuff, and you can even like get some of their like meat sticks or whatever. Good stuff. So I have a discount code for that. I'm gonna have to look it up, but I will leave it in the comments section or the description or whatever it is. I'm so new to YouTube, and that'll get you, I think, 10% off. But I'll have to double check it. I'll have to double check, but I'll leave it in there. I'll make an ad for it later. That's what's up. I make money, you make money. Anyway, so back to the book. Back to the book. The hang on, let's just turn this a little bit. It's just bugging crap on me. Weird. The issue that Joel was having was that he didn't understand why in the world is a custom product, if it's safe, why can't they sell it? And if it's safe to eat when you have a name on the tag before slaughter, then why isn't selling your package from that animal also safe? If it's all about safety, that was the argument that he had. He also questioned, what about the exchange of money for the package that suddenly makes it a hazardous substance? Because drugs are illegal, and you can't sell and you can't possess drugs. But in food, it's not the case. So it's like the prohibition, as he says, is on the seller, not the buyer. And if you can possess meat from your neighbor, but you can't sell meat to your neighbor, then the only thing that's different here is the exchange of money. Because you can gift it to them. Oh, this is weird. Alright, I'm going to pull the book up again because we got another thingamajig to read. I've already skipped a couple pages. Wait, where is this? Oh, we're going to skip it. Oh, God. And on this topic of prohibition, Joel says, this is not about food safety. It's about denying market access to appropriate scaled transparent products and thereby ensuring de facto market protection for the current big players. And what these regulations do is to ensure that whatever money is made in tomorrow's food system will be made by today's players. Oh, I'm so hungry. So yeah, it's quite annoying because Joel's battling with the beef regulations and the grower exemptions, and he's got a lot on his plate, even though he thinks that the Republicans. Hang on, I want to read this real quick. The Republicans. To the Republicans, this is small business and entrepreneurship held back by meaningless regulations. To the Democrats, it's about environmental farming and chemical-free food access in the marketplace. And the funny thing is, this is messed up, but I'm on both sides there. And maybe that's why I agree with Joel so much, because he's like a libertarian. They're somewhere in the middle and somewhere outside. Like, they just think for themselves, which I totally agree with. Why not think for your dang self? Like, I'm all about entrepreneurship. I like capitalism. I like being able to, stimulate an economy by giving part of me to someone else, my hard work or my creativity. And you give that to someone else. They take it, they use it, they make something else, they give it to someone else, whether that's money or equity of some kind. There's all kinds of different kinds of equity. But in this particular capitalist society that we live in, it's money, and money is just a tool. And if you're using that tool to get ahead, you can innovate an entire civilization. It pushes innovation, and that's what I like about it. Now, what sucks about it is that when you have too much, when the regulations are less supportive of the little guy in this situation that we're in, and they favor big corporations, and things like lobbying and PACs are illegal, or they are illegal. Um, it makes for a very weird system that seems to be completely obfuscated from humanity, where these giant monopolies take over, and then we're left with like the crumbs, and they don't really care. At least that's what it seems like. And then you got some of the richest people in the world just making decisions for us. It's like I didn't pay you to make decisions for me, because we're paying their freaking when you buy an iPhone, who are you paying? When you buy something off of Amazon, who gets paid for that? Get that Tesla. Stay at that pretty gold hotel. Am I pushing anyone's buttons here? But we live in a system where we're sending money up the chain whether you want to or not. Like, there is nothing free about this society. So get that stupid socialist idea out of your head, because socialism is not what you think it is. Capitalism is not what it's supposed to be, I think, is the best way that I could put that. And wouldn't it be nice if we could all play in the same sandbox and get along? Would be nice. I think to kind of wrap this up, I want to go over the last little bit of what Joel was going through. So, as he was battling over the beef regulations, and he had the thing with the PL 9492, I think that's what it was. PL 9492 with the chicken police, when he had the issues that were going along with that, and interpretations like clouding the judgment. All this was going down at the same time. It was like sucky year for him. Like, he really was just like, can I check out of my life? I don't want to farm right now. You just get like to a point where you're just like, you've had it. You got people knocking on your door all the time you don't know, and they're from like some freaking Narnia over there where they just do things different. It's called a city. Yeah, everybody's plugged in. And then they show up, and they're just like, yeah, checking boxes as they do. They don't know you from Adam. They don't care. They have no soul. Remember, they're just doing their job. And having enough people showing up at his door just doing their job has really gotten under his skin. So, like, he was just standing out in the field. This is where we come to this story from the beginning. He was standing out in the field, and God, this sucks. He was just like at his limit. It's like story time. I'm just gonna chill. He was at his limit, and he decided that he wanted to talk to God. And I'm going to read you an excerpt from what he wrote. It was beautiful, sad, hurt, and all at the same time, it felt really good. So, here it goes. I've separated myself. He said, on an extremely personal note, I will share that during one of the darkest mornings when this inspector was camped outside our front door, I was praying and meditating in my field during chores in great anguish of soul and spirit. And my question was, what do you want, God? Have you blessed us with these customers and these environmentally enhanced production models to just shut it down? And in the quietness of that moment, while I was moving broiler shelters with the gentle chirping of the birds as a background, and the answer came back for such a time as this. And my mind immediately went to the Old Testament book of Esther, when the Persian king had been duped by an evil courtier. Is it a courtier or courtier? Courtier. To command the extermination of all Jews. Esther, a Jewess, disregarded royal protocol, disregarded her life, and was admonished by her loving uncle and guardian Mordecai for such a time as this. Esther 4:14 was the scripture that's from, if you want to go back and read the story. And she conceived of a plan at peril to her own life to save her people, and it worked. In many years since that day, I have taken great solace in that answer. Oh, it hurts my heart. That's so. He's a freaking pioneer, y'all. He is. And it goes down to say, this is not just a business. It is a sacred calling, a sacred ministry, serving people who seek truth and are willing to travel dirt roads to get it. This man has been through the ringer, and this book is full of all of that. And if you find yourself in a position where you want to be empowered by somebody, this is a guy. He is a freaking American. Man. That is some dark stuff right there for such a time as this. And I really wish I had all the answers, but I don't. But Joel, for you, I do want to say this. Your fight is our fight, and we are blessed with the opportunity to be able to see your story, the way that you have averted the system, been a renegade, but you've been able to create movements because of your backbone. Stand tall and fight against the system, and I appreciate that. You are a true American, sir. I salute you. The system is a freaking beast. Man. My ooey gooey's inside. Alright. Go get your book at polyfaceshop.com. Let me double check that. Polyfaceshop.com. That's Joel's website. And you can have your book ordered and to you ASAP so that we can read this together. Little teary-eyed. I want to go ahead and read a little bit into chapter 5. Oh wait, we got to go over this real quick. Because as much as the story sucks, I did want to leave you guys with some solutions, sort of. Some things that you can do in order to support the little guy a little bit more and maybe go against the grain. Stop the tyranny, all that stuff. But if you are somewhat moved by this, at least just a little bit, then one of the things I want to encourage you to do is to support your local food system and food freedom laws. So it may be a little bit of homework for you guys to look things up, but if you watch Unasa TV, I know I mentioned him earlier, that guy, he's hardcore into telling people about all the wild stuff that's going on in the food system. But they have this logo called Defend the Right to Farm. And I love that because it's like one of the most empowering things that you can think of is defend the right to farm. You have a right to eat good food. You deserve it. So Support things like your farmers market, herd shares, cottage food laws. If you can get involved in any kind of way, the best way that you can do is start a grassroots movement. Just start a little group, a little Facebook group locally or a meetup, and get together and just talk about the things that you're interested in that apply to you, that are in regards to eating locally. Buy from small farms. Stop shopping at, the places. Stop shopping there. Get involved with milk shares, to community gardens. Like, there's so many different ideas for you to, think outside the system and stop being like the consumer that's just sucked into this conglomerate owned society that we're all just like kind of plugged into. This is like the Matrix, right? Y'all have watched the Matrix. I have 2 cameras this whole time, just so you know. But yeah, unplug. Freaking unplug. All right, we're gonna read a little bit of chapter 5 real quick. This is all the stuff we're reading, just to summarize it, and then I want you to go get your book so we don't feel like we're plagiarizing anything. It's copyright. Chapter 5 is about bacon. I love bacon. But it's full of nitrates, my aunt said. And I said, but the ring pop has red 40 in it. So no thanks to the ring pop. I don't know. Did I make a better decision? Ring pop versus bacon? You tell me. All right. I'd like some bacon. Why don't you offer that? The customer's question seemed reasonable enough. After all, we sold sausage, ground pork, tenderloin, square ribs, backbone, pork chops, fresh pork roast. Why not offer bacon? And to the average person, bacon is just a special kind of pork. I love my bacon, and I certainly wanted to sell it to this customer. My father-in-law had a curing house, and when Teresa and I were younger, the family would go together in November and have a hog killing. We'd dress out the hogs in the morning and let the carcasses cool down on tripod poles during lunch, which was a veritable, that's a big word for me, veritable feast. After lunch, we'd cut the hogs into their main pieces and then begin cooking the fat for lard. The ham, shoulders, and bellies would be carried up to large wooden tables in the curing house and liberally covered with the curing recipe. After accepting the cure, the meat is ambient temperature, stable indefinitely. Common knowledge and common procedure in the countryside, home curing gradually fell into disuse with the rise of industrial curing operations, the supermarket, and the rise of the government regulations. It is an extremely simple process, does not require much infrastructure, and it's easy to learn. Why not just go ahead and bring back the big pieces of belly from the slaughterhouse and cure it here on the farm like we used to? We had the ability, the desire, the market, and the infrastructure. The only problem was it was illegal. Guys, thank you for coming back to Texas Food Systems to listen to another story time about Joel Salatin with our book club. And we appreciate you. I'm going to drop a couple of those links in the description down below so that you guys can take advantage of getting some meat from Rep Provisions if you are thinking about ordering some nice regenerative beef from some reputable sources. And next, we will be diving into chapter 5. So if you've gotten your book already, please go ahead and read that. And let me know what you thought about this episode. And if we can do better on delivering, then we will. But for now, I'm going to see y'all later. Take care. Bye.